back to my channel Luna Noir Tarot and this mini-series Teaching Tarot. So here we are again, another week and another video. For those of you who are in America, happy 4th. And yeah, for those of you who are returning, thank you for coming back and engaging with this mini-series. It's been really fun to do, and I'm just enjoying teaching you guys all about the different tarot cards. So last week I changed it up and I've decided to do 3 cards per video. This will help to speed up the mini-series, but it will also help for you guys to learn the cards a lot faster and just allow you to start getting immersed in your tarot reading a lot more quickly and with a lot more confidence. So these videos are a little bit longer than usual, but they do cover more cards. So hopefully you'll stick with it, but let's get to it. So the first card you can see, and the next one in the Major Arcana deck, is the Justice card. So the Justice card is, for me, all about balance and fairness. So let's start with the illustration because that's where we like to begin. So you can see here on the left hand side we have the Justice card. You can see that there is a person sat on what looks like a throne with a sword and the scales in their hands. Again, you know, this card is very simple, but it has a very strong message. So the background, there isn't really much to it. It seems to be like a draping curtain of some kind. So yeah, I feel like the main point of this card is definitely about the person, the scales, the sword. You know, it's really depicting justice. The colors on it, you know, you have reds, we have some yellows, green, gold. In this card, I feel like the colors are less important and more the symbolism with the crown, with the scales, and with the sword. You know, it's very much about fairness. It's very much about keeping the equilibrium of the world and just generally having a balance in life. You know, with the sword, it's about fighting for things, for fairness, for justice, for things that you really want, you know, that you truly believe in. You really want to fight for it. With the crown, it's more about importance rather than status. It's about putting importance on, you know, the fairness and justice and the equilibrium of everything. So here, when I see the crown, I feel like it's because this person has a heavy, like a heavy stance on fairness, right? So again, it's about authority, but not quite in the way that we often see in other cards with like the kings and the queens. You know, it's not really about status or social stature or anything like that. It's more about the importance and putting weight and authority behind the fight for fairness. Now, the general meanings of the card are balance, fairness, responsibility, legal matters, contracts, and honesty. So often when I see this card, you know, for me, especially when it comes out in a career reading or even a general reading, you know, it can mean contracts. It can mean you're signing some sort of contract. Now, this could be a marriage, it could be a divorce, it could be buying a new house, selling a house, a new job, ending a job contract. Because, if you read this card in the reverse, it means dishonesty, imbalance, lack of accountability, issues with a contract or with a legal matter, or unfair treatment, okay? So if this does come out in the reverse, often it's about ending some sort of contract, some sort of legal matter, usually when this card comes out. So often when it's in the upright, it's usually a good sign. Oh, whatever legal matter that you're going through, whatever contract you're looking to sign, it's a good sign. It means that there's a contract that's coming for you, and it's going to be good. But often in the reverse, it can mean that there's delays in your legal matters. There are delays in the contract coming forward. There are delays in you getting a new job. That doesn't mean you're not getting the job. It could just mean a delay in the job. Sometimes it can even indicate that a job that you've lost might be coming back to you, for whatever reason. It could be that that they initially hired no longer wants the job, or the person they initially hired just wasn't the best fit for the company, and they might come back to you round robin. So it can mean things like that. The card itself is its element is air, and its ruling planet is Venus. So the Justice card, I like it. It's a very simple card. It's very to the point. You understand it when you see it. It doesn't require too much interpretation of the imagery or interpretation of the card. It is pretty much what you see, right? And justice itself is a word that very clearly depicts the imagery. Sometimes you get a card, and the card can have a name that's not necessarily very descriptive, but justice itself is a descriptive word. So even if you didn't see the imagery, as soon as you saw the word justice, you have ideas, linked to justice. We see it every day in the news. So for us, it's very much a word that we can all understand. It's a word that we all can find other words to associate with it, like fairness and balance and honesty and fighting for what you believe in. So yeah, justice is a pretty good card. It's a pretty simple card, and it's easy to interpret. So let's move on to the Hanged Man. Now the Hanged Man is an interesting card, very different from the Justice card in that there's a lot more to unpick here, okay? So again, it's a very simple card. The background, not much to it, okay? It's a very blank background. He's on a tree, what looks like a tree stump. He's hanging upside down. There's a yellow, almost like a yellow halo above his head, like above and behind his head. And he's wearing pretty basic clothes. So with this one, it's more about focusing on the fact that, he is upside down. Okay? So here, and the fact that the behind his head is like yellow and it's glowing, to me, it tells me to focus on the mind. So when I see this card, it's more about this person, this hanged man, his mind, his thoughts, his beliefs. That's really where the focus is, because everything else in the card is very simple, it's very basic, and it's not too eye-catching. But then you see this one circle halo type thing behind his head, and it kind of draws your attention. So again, I've mentioned this before, but yellow is connected to the solar plexus. Okay, so with the fact that his head is illuminated, it tells you also that he is very much a thinker. He is trying to decide something, or he's pondering, his mind is active. That's what I think when I see this yellow circle around his head. So the general meanings of this card are breaking old patterns, letting go, suspension, change of perspective. In the reverse, it can mean egotism, inability to change, missing an opportunity, stubbornness, and rigidity, okay? So, when I see the Hanged Man, to me it's all about change of perspective, okay? It's like the universe telling you to look at things in a different way, put yourself in someone else's shoes, change the way you're seeing things. Now, literally, this person is hanging upside down to see things in a different perspective. Of course, you don't have to suspend yourself in this way, but it is about seeing things in a different way. Now, this could be, as I said, putting yourself in someone else's shoes. It can be done through empathy. It can be done through, maybe if you're thinking too narrowly, then to have a wider picture, bigger picture view. Equally, if you're thinking too broadly, you might want to narrow it down. So it's just about changing your perspective in some way. Maybe you need to become more open-minded about something. Maybe you're too open-minded and you need to become a little bit more focused. Okay, so it's all about this change of perspective, change of mindset. How can you change the way you're looking at something to create a different result, or to understand why someone else is looking at it in that way? You know, sometimes it's about how can you move things forward by changing your perspective. So here it's all about, as I said, the mind and just changing your perspective. And also about not being so rigid and stubborn in the ways that you think, and to be more open-minded, to be more open to other people's suggestions, or seeing it from another person's point of view. So the element of this card is water. Its ruling planet is Neptune. So it's interesting because water elements are a lot more about emotions. So, you know, it's really about this head versus heart battle that a lot of us have from time to time. You know, it's like, well, I feel this way, but my mind's telling me this. Should I follow my heart? Should I follow my head? So it could be either or. If you're too logical and analytical about something, it's asking you to also follow your heart. What do you feel? You know, get a good balance between what the logical thing to do is, or what the mental, I guess, the more analytical answer is, versus, you know, what you're feeling. Because sometimes our mind is telling us one thing, but we just have this strange feeling, you know, something's just not sitting right in our gut. And you have to follow that through. You have to understand, figure out, try and find a reason why you're having this, like, these second thoughts, as they say. So, you know, don't just ignore one for the other. And equally, if you're too emotional, or you're too emotionally vested in something or invested in something, definitely try and think more logically, more rationally. Or if someone is giving you that argument, you know, just try and be more open-minded. Try and understand why they're having that, having those thoughts. So that's how I would approach the whole Hangman card. So finally we have the Death card. Now, people see the Death card and they freak out, okay? It's very much like seeing the Tower card, which we will cover next week. But yeah, often people see this card and they think, oh no, does it mean literal death? Now, sometimes it can be an indication that there might be a death in the family or in your inner circle. But more often than not, it's talking about endings, okay? It's more about rebirth. It's more about ending things that no longer serve you. Things coming to an end. Maybe if this comes out in a love reading, it could be like the end of a relationship. But yeah, it is more about endings. It is more about, you know, just this whole rebirth, this whole ending something to begin again, ending something to create something better. Now, there is a lot going on in this card comparatively. You know, there is what looks like a skeleton on a horse. Sometimes it's the Grim Reaper if you've seen other cards. But it's essentially this soldier who is a skeleton, you know, parading with this flag. And then it looks like there's like a person next to him that's like on the floor. You know, it looks like they're just lying there, possibly dead, with this being the death card. There's also like a person at the bottom playing a trumpet. So you know what it's kind of depicting, you know, many things. It's talking about rebirth, it's talking about penance, because there is like a bishop or some kind of religious figure there with their hands in a prayer position. So it is about, you know, seeking maybe forgiveness for certain things that we've done in our lives. It can also, it's kind of like going through the whole cycle of death, basically. There's this person parading around, but he is the embodiment of death. Then you have a person who's died there. There's a person kneeling on the floor in the corner. You know, there's just a lot going on, but it is all about like the different processes of death. Now, this is going to mean different things to different people, depending on your religion, depending on your spiritual beliefs. You know, some people believe in the afterlife, some don't. Some people believe in reincarnation, others don't. And some people believe in like Judgment Day and resurrection, others don't. So remember that these cards were made in a time when religion was kind of the main belief. When basically, you know, Christianity and just generally the Western world was pushing their religious beliefs out there. And, you know, if you wanted to be different to those religious beliefs, then, you know, there were things that basically you were outcasted, we'll put it that way. So, you know, these are the original illustrations of the time. They are going to depict certain illustrations that that maybe certain religious, you know, sects wanted to depict, and also like what was true of the time. So anyway, in this card it does show like a religious person kind of giving a blessing or possibly asking for penance. There is a trumpet player at the bottom, which is kind of announcing this person coming through. And it is this whole Grim Reaper vibe, you know, the angel of death coming to take your soul kind of thing. There's another person in the corner begging, looks like they don't want this person to take them or their soul. And then, you know, so it's kind of this very deathly, morbid scene, or what people considered death to look like, you know, once someone had died, like their soul would be taken by this angel of death, right? So that's why there's a lot going on in this picture here, in this scene. There is a lot of black, again, the color of kind of funerals and death. There's also white as well, because in certain countries, white is also the color of that you wear to funerals and when somebody passes away. So there is both the colors here. The general meanings of this card are endings, failure, letting go of attachments, profound change, and illness. In the reverse, it can mean delayed endings, depression, being oblivious to something, and resistance to change. As I said, I mostly see it when, you know, something is ending, and then you can kind of figure out which one of these it more pertains to depending on what the surrounding cards are. So I would look at the other cards in the spread and see like what the surrounding cards are, because that will kind of depict to you if it's more about a profound change, about letting go of something, an illness, or endings. So this card's element is also water, and its ruling planet is Pluto. Alright guys, so that's our 3 cards for this week. Next week we will be covering Temperance, the Devil, and the Tower. Alright guys, as I said, if you're in America, happy 4th. If you're not, have a great weekend, and I will catch you guys next week. Thanks for watching.